Since we're talking about population numbers, how they grow, how they decline, all that great stuff, let's look at how these populations interact. Um, it might be interspecies competition or interspecies interaction, meaning among different species, but it might be intraspecific too. It might be how organisms interact within the same species too. Whatever's going on, there's a lot of factors involved in affecting populations. One of them is going to be competition. So you already know competition, the struggle to obtain a limiting resource. And this one can be between individuals of the same species or between different species. You're competing for water, for food, for space, for light, for mates, whatever their growth and reproductive requirements are. In this case, you put two different species of Paramecia, as you can see down there at the bottom, nice cuties. If you put them alone, you get to see how they survive, right? They live fine on their own. If you put them together, they start to compete. And it looks like Aurelia is the one who is the stronger competitor. This one's a weaker one. Now, in some cases, one can outcompete the other one so much that it drives it to extinction. But in general, that's not how it usually works, right? Instead, what happens is Kararam's numbers just stay really low. Or the next thing that could happen is what we call resource partitioning, also called competitive exclusion, also called niche partitioning, also called resource allocation. I'll put all that stuff in your notes. In real ecosystems, it looks like competing actually ends up as partitioning, eventually partitioning the resources among different species. So up at the top right here, you can see there's two species, and they like to eat seeds. This species tends to the bigger ones, this species the smaller ones, but there's an overlap here. At this point where they overlap, whichever is the stronger competitor is the one that's going to win that particular region. Let's find out. Some generations go by, and it looks like this green teal species 1 is the stronger competitor, and so it lives there. But the rest of species 2 survives just fine. It's just where they were competing was where species 2 had to back off. And so resource partitioning, this resource is partitioned, allocated to minimize this competition. So this did affect the numbers of species 2, but notice that now they seem to be living in peace now, but that's because there was some competition there. Also called resource allocation, also called niche partitioning. But this is a nice picture because it shows you more of like the final result. The final result, all of these resources were allocated or partitioned. And also notice that pretty much every single space possible is taken up. Because anywhere life can happen, it is. So predator-prey relationships are going to affect your population numbers. So some terms: predation, using one species as a resource, eating another species, really. True predators kill their prey. So you've got the tiger down here, or I'm sorry, the lion down here, tiger. Herbivores, look at this scary predator, consumes plants, but you can just call them an herbivore. Parasites live on or in the organism they consume. Parasitoids lay eggs inside other organisms. And I'll tell you why these, I guess they are predators, but we kind of tend to just keep them in their own category as parasites. Here's a nice, lovely slide, lots of good pictures with all sorts of predator-prey defense adaptations. So organisms have camouflage to prevent being eaten by predators. Organisms have toxic chemicals like venom or poison. Venom is when it, you know, injects you. Poison is when you eat it and it's bad for you. Kills you or whatever. Cute little skunkies. They spray out some potent stuff that scares predators away. All of these moths and owls, or at least the moths, kind of look like they've got these scary owl eye patterns on them. So nice, interesting, and just speed. You know, they have to get faster. Predators have to get faster to catch their prey, but prey have to get faster to run away from them. Hiding. Some organisms hide really well, and so the predators have to get really good at finding them. So getting smarter can be an adaptation too. You have to get stronger. The predator has to get stronger to take down its prey. The prey has to get stronger to run away from it. All in all, predators and prey co-evolve, right? As the prey gets faster, the predator has to get faster. As this snake gets more poisonous, whatever eats it has to be able to withstand the poison more. These will co-evolve. The symbioses, you guys love the symbioses. Symbiosis, living together. First type of symbiosis is a mutualism, where they benefit one another. They help one another. These are leafcutter ants, love them. They gather the leaves to take to the little fungus. The fungus digests them, decomposes them, makes this little glucose stuff for them to eat. More mutualisms, so bees and flowers, right? Bees get the nectar from the flowers, up in the picture on the left. And then bees snuggle their heads into the pollen grains, and some of them stick to them. And so when this little bee goes to the next flower, she might pollinate, she might help fertilize the other flowers. And this is beneficial for the flower because this sexual reproduction increases their genetic diversity. The flower's genetic diversity is important because now it's more likely to survive if the environment changes. Coral has tons of symbiotic relationships. So the corals with their little photosynthetic organisms themselves, corals with clownfish, like Finding Nemo always reminds me. It's also just a shelter for all these fish. Commensalism is the second type of symbiosis. Commensalism is a relationship among species where one of them benefits and the other one doesn't seem to be helped or harmed. So sometimes you'll see some flowers way up high in trees, especially if there's like little pockets of water. So that's helpful for it because it's it's closer to the sunlight for photosynthesis, or it's further away from its prey. I'm sorry, predators. Barnacles on a whale, apparently not harmful to the whale, but the barnacles get a ride. They get a home to latch on, and they're filter feeders, so they get to filter through the waters as the whale swims on. As long as there aren't too many barnacles on there, right? The last type of symbiosis is your parasites. It's like fleas on your cat or your dog, or parasitoids. A parasite, a wasp, injects this nice plump little caterpillar with its eggs. Those eggs hatch, they're going to eat that little caterpillar. So this is a relationship between a couple of species where one of them clearly benefits. The fleas are going to eat your dog's blood. But the other one is somehow harmed. Usually not killed, because that would be more like the predator relationship. Or at least not immediately killed. Like these little larvae are going to slowly kill that that caterpillar. And last but not least, you've got a keystone species. Keystone species plays, it's key. It's a key species. It plays an important role in the community, even if there aren't that many of them. So it's far more important than its relative abundance might suggest. If you remove it from the ecosystem, you get to see some of the drastic effects to that community. So little tiny cute beavers build dams that other species largely depend on. So high biodiversity of organisms if you let your little beavers do their thing. In the North Pacific coast, we have these huge kelp forests, humongous, like tall, home to fish, shellfish, all sorts of marine organisms. And you've got little sea otters, cute little sea otters, and they eat sea urchins that eat the kelp. So there's a lot of sea urchins that eat kelp. You might have whales that eat the sea otters if food supplies are low. But the main point is if sea urchin numbers explode, they're going to overeat the kelp forests. And so, if they overeat the kelp forest, there isn't going to be this nice, lovely little ecosystem for all the other organisms. Biodiversity plummets. So your keystone species are going to be the ones that are key in maintaining the population numbers at a nice biodiverse level. So if your sea otters are eating the sea urchin are the ones, if their numbers get too high, are going to pretty much destroy this ecosystem, then your sea otters must be that keystone species.